Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Wabi Sabi Love, the Ancient Art of Finding Perfect Love in Imperfect Relationships by Arielle Ford. Narrated by Nan Mcnamara. Forward. It is with pleasure that I introduce you to a genuinely useful book on a subject of timeless importance: how to create and nurture lasting love. Arielle Ford is a dear friend and has been a trusted colleague of mine for many years. I'm pleased that she has gifted us with this heart-opening and mind-expanding book. My pleasure is multiplied because I know this book will enlighten and change the lives of many people. As the poet Torquato Tasso said, "Any time not spent on love is wasted." In Wabi Sabi Love, Arielle Ford does not waste a moment of your time. She goes directly to the heart of what it takes to make love grow and thrive over time. At the center of this book is a profound insight about how to flow with your experiences in a close relationship. In Wabi Sabi Love, you will learn how to embrace and love imperfection, your own and your partner's. Since you're likely to encounter your fair share of imperfection as you proceed along the pathways of love, it helps to get good at dancing with it. This book is a true treasure trove of inspiration and information on how not only to live with imperfection, but also to thrive from it. There are many nuggets to be found in this book, but there is one I'd like to share with you here. As Arielle puts it, early on in our relationship, we decided that our union would be our #1 priority. We promised each other that our choices would be based not on what Arielle wanted or on what Brian wanted, but on what was ultimately best for our relationship. When I read this passage, I found myself wondering, why don't we get wisdom like this taught to us in elementary and high school? Imagine the mistakes we might avoid and the love we might harvest if we knew a few simple principles like the ones Arielle shares in Wabi Sabi Love. Arielle has a major credential in the area of relationships, and it happens to be the only one that really counts. She has thrived for many years in a wonderful relationship with her husband, Brian Hilliard. Kathleen and I have been with Arielle and Brian on dozens of occasions, and we can testify that her relationship is a living example of what she teaches. Relationships of the quality that Arielle and Brian enjoy do not thrive over time by chance or even by good karma. They're the result of the dedicated application of good ideas and good skills. Wabi Sabi Love has an abundance of both, and for that reason, as well as many others, I recommend it to you highly. Gay Hendricks, Ph.D., author of 5 Wishes and the Big Leap, co-author with Kathleen Hendricks, Ph.D., of Conscious Loving and the Conscious Heart. Introduction. We come to love not by finding a perfect person, but by learning to see an imperfect person perfectly. Sam Keen. Love. It's right up there with air, food, and water as one of the most vital ingredients for existence. Love nourishes our souls and arouses our deepest desires. And yet, for many people, it's the hardest thing to find. Even harder still is sustaining that love once you've found it. When it comes to making love last, the reality is pretty unsettling. Right now, 50% of first marriages, 67% of second marriages, and 74% of third marriages end in divorce. But however grim the statistics, there is hope for keeping love alive. A new paradigm is on the horizon, one that has the power to shift your focus from all that seems wrong to all that is right. Even if you're blessed to be with someone who is compatible with you on a physical, emotional, or spiritual level, it's highly likely that there is one thing, or perhaps a handful of things about him or her that you wish were just a little different. Maybe you wish your partner were a more passionate lover or a better listener, didn't leave piles of clothes all over the house, or shared more of your creative interests. If you've ever woken up to that feeling of, if only things were different, you're not alone. The fact is, our culture has conditioned us to expect perfection from ourselves and others, and this expectation often leads us into a perpetual state of frustration and dissatisfaction. The human mind can be a fault-finding machine uniquely equipped to focus with laser-like precision on the few things that are lacking, rather than on the bigger picture of all that we have in abundance. If, like so many, you've lost sight of the forest of your deeper love for your partner through the trees of his or her imperfections, the tools and skills you will learn in this book will allow you to see yourself and your partner in an entirely new light, strengthen the bond that brought you together in the first place, and take your relationship to a whole new level. This book is firmly rooted in the belief that how you choose to see things informs the way they appear for you. For anyone in a long-term relationship, you know how quickly a little quirk and idiosyncrasy can progress from a rub to a burn. How often do you find yourselves arguing over the same little things? But what if, instead of focusing your attention on trying to change that one thing about your partner, you had the ability to actually change the way you look at that one thing? Suddenly, the focus of everything in your relationship would shift. How will you get to that seemingly unreachable place? You will learn to apply the timeless principles of Wabi Sabi. Based on the ancient Japanese aesthetic of finding beauty in imperfection, Wabi Sabi Love applies this concept to love relationships. It is the art of loving your partner's imperfections rather than indulging in the fantasy that your relationship can fire on all cylinders only when both people are acting perfectly and behaving in ways that are acceptable to the other. Just imagine the possibilities that would open up in your relationship if you could learn to accept, embrace, and even find the gift in your partner's imperfections. It's not just about tolerating our partner's so-called flaws, but actually finding the perfection in all that is imperfect about them. By learning to live Wabi Sabi Love, you will create a heartfelt, loving, long-lasting, committed, joyful relationship that lights you up as a couple, knowing that you are greater together than apart, and that your bond will be forever stronger, deeper, and more meaningful as a result of embracing these practices. I remember being spellbound when I first came across the concept of Wabi Sabi. It was late afternoon on a cold November day more than 20 years ago. I was gazing out my office window, enjoying the western sky as it turned shades of crimson with splashes of orange light around the setting sun. I picked up a magazine and came across an article with a striking black and white photograph of a large Asian urn sitting on a pedestal with a long, crooked crack down the middle. The crack was highlighted by gallery lighting. Huh? It did not compute. The headline read, "The Art of Wabi Sabi." Curious, I began reading about this exotic-sounding phrase. In the world of Wabi Sabi, the urn in the photograph was even more beautiful and valued because of the crack, because of its imperfection. Singer and poet Leonard Cohen clearly expressed this basic Wabi Sabi principle in his haunting song, Anthem. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Seeing the ways that Wabi Sabi helps to illuminate the hidden beauty in life had an immediate and profound impact on me. And it wasn't long before I began to realize how this ancient art form relates to love. So many things began to make sense. I mean, I already knew I wasn't perfect and wasn't capable of perfection, but I had never entertained the idea that not only should I not strive for perfection, but that my imperfection is in its own way more valuable than perfection itself. I sensed the weight of the world lifting off my shoulders. I could now breathe a little deeper and with more ease. The mess of papers on my desk was no longer evidence of my disorganized mind, but rather a testament to my creativity and hard work. The stain on my skirt, obtained at a lunch meeting, was no longer embarrassing proof of my klutzy cutlery skills, but instead proof of my strong appetite for nourishment and for life. I decided then and there to become a Wabi Sabi artisan. And what started as simply a sincere desire to honor the imperfection in myself and others soon became a deliberate way of life. Once I manifested Brian, my soulmate, I wanted to see if two people could apply the principles of Wabi Sabi toward a long-term committed relationship while still preserving the juicy joy and magic that brought them together. I soon learned that Wabi Sabi holds the key to everlasting love. The idea of accepting imperfection isn't something I swallowed easily. After all, I come from a long line of gutsy, competent women who know how to make things happen. My strong-willed grandmother, Ada, used her Irish sweepstakes earnings to move her family from Brooklyn to Miami to set up a new family business back in the day when women didn't do such things. Following the maternal lineage, my mother, Sheila, is an adventurous, fun-loving, and incredibly beautiful powerhouse. She's confident, smart, and very assertive, a successful businesswoman long before she'd heard of Gloria Steinem. Mom raised me to take care of myself, with little emphasis on the actual feelings of the people around me. Who had time for that? Toughen up and get it done, was her motto. The fact is, I would not be the woman I am today had it not been for my mother's powerful role modeling. And by the same token, I also realized fairly early on in my relationship with Brian that the take-charge attitude that served me so well at work was more than a little counterproductive at home. One afternoon, as I caught myself with my hand on my hip about to wag a finger at my fiancé, Brian, to vehemently make a point about something, I stopped myself cold. Oh, God. I was on the verge of being overbearing, even bitchy. I was so lost in my own needs and wants that I totally ignored those of the man I cared about more than anyone, the man I'd been searching for my whole life. This was not the woman I had fantasized about being in my soulmate relationship. Powerless, I felt the stronghold of judgment and intolerance taking over. What could I do? In a flash of inspiration, I told Brian that if he ever saw me behaving this way again, which I guessed rather prophetically would be inevitable, he had my total permission to kindly ask, "Is Sheila in the room?" Referencing my mom, Sheila, whom I absolutely adore, would be a playful way of reminding me that while my strong, opinionated communication style keeps things at the office on track, I needed to dial it back a few notches in order to maintain a peaceful home. Brian laughed and readily agreed. Then, being the loving and evolved guy that he is, he immediately reciprocated and threw me a major bone. "If you ever find me giving you the silent treatment or becoming too paternalistic," he said, "you have my permission to call me Wayne." Oh, this was big. Wayne is Brian's father, a strong and important figure in his life. But I knew his dad didn't communicate his feelings enough, and Brian didn't want to model that behavior. This is how, early on in our relationship, my man and I discovered light-hearted and nurturing ways to diffuse potentially touchy subjects. I hadn't yet connected all the dots to know that we were practicing the ancient art of Wabi Sabi. All I knew at the time was that our interaction felt grown-up and mature, while also being playfully creative and extremely healing. We were both sort of stunned by it, happily amused. It had been so simple, no anger or drama, but at the same time, completely life-changing. We look back on that moment as a profound turning point in each of our lives, a new way of relating that had somehow eluded us in earlier relationships. And we both believe that had we not gone this route, that of working gently with each other's imperfections, we would have thrust ourselves over the cliff in similar fashion to our previous relationships, ending up emotionally battered, bruised, and, once again, alone. Thankfully, we were ready. We learned how to apply the art of Wabi Sabi to gift each other our best selves, flaws included, and we've never turned off the Wabi Sabi spigot. It is without a doubt the secret to our successful soulmate relationship. This ancient practice has brought us, more joy and love than the two of us could ever have dreamed. And it's something I know you too can experience. After the successful release of The Soulmate Secret, friends and readers alike asked two questions. Now that I've found love, how do I maintain that love for the rest of my life? And how do I turn the lover I'm already with into my soulmate? While the Soulmate Secret unveiled the principles for attracting love, this book now offers ways for living that love in a sustainable fashion. From this book, you will benefit from the wisdom that I unearthed along my journey, as well as that of many others who have used Wabi Sabi principles to discover a deeper and more fulfilling love. I will share amazing true life stories that will give you a vast array of ideas for implementing Wabi Sabi into your everyday life and relationships. You will learn to apply humor, listening, intimacy, and generosity at precisely those moments where you would normally retreat. The fact is that even though it's simple, love, as you know, is rarely easy. For instance, initially, I thought that once I'd found my soulmate, our love would evolve naturally. We'd be living on autopilot, happily floating through one delicious day after another. If only. All couples, even soulmates, have challenges to face and obstacles to overcome in romantic partnership. This book illumines the path to triumphing over our imperfections, not by denying or tolerating them, but by knowing full well what they are and celebrating them. In this book, you will learn to apply the wisdom of Wabi Sabi to minimize conflict and create a deeper, more loving relationship. Learning to live Wabi Sabi love in every moment won't happen overnight. However, when you remember the simple tenets of Wabi Sabi to find the perfection and beauty of imperfection in both yourself and your beloved, you will find that you can let go of issues and challenges much faster while transforming yourself and your relationship in the process. With each chapter dedicated to tackling one Wabi Sabi love practice at a time, the book is designed to help you develop tools and insights to fulfill the promise of your soulmate partnership. It's not about accepting harmful or unhealthy behavior, but about integrating your partner's full beingness and your own into a sustainable, everlasting relationship. Wabi Sabi Love will show you how to cultivate love for yourself and for your partner, especially on the days when one of you is being difficult or stubborn, acting out, spinning off in a million directions, refusing to listen, skipping commitments, spewing negativity, indulging in a pity party, shutting down, closing off, or being generally cranky, moody, and unfit for human consumption. Does this sound familiar? If you find your toad turned prince or princess has warts after all, welcome to the club. You may not be perfect, but through the practices laid out in this book, your love can be. Throughout the book, I have chosen to randomly alternate between the he and she forms because Wabi Sabi love applies to everyone. It is my dream that you will use the insights, tools, stories, and practices offered in this book to experience more love, more joy, more compassion, and more peace with yourself and with your beloved. Now more than ever, the planet needs the high vibration that authentically happy couples radiate. So let's get started. Wishing you a lifetime of Wabi Sabi love. Arielle Ford, La Jolla, California. Please note, practicing Wabi Sabi love is not an invitation to go into denial or accept bad behavior or harmful situations. In the event you find yourself in an abusive relationship, you are advised to seek professional counsel immediately. Chapter 1. Growing a Generous Heart. Teach this triple truth to all. A generous heart, kind speech, and a life of service and compassion are the things which renew humanity. Buddha. As with most new couples, when Brian and I first married, we experienced several months of true bliss. But as anyone will tell you, marriage is not the same as the romancing prior to the wedding. Have you ever noticed we never really learn what happens to Cinderella after the prince sweeps her off her feet and they ride off together into the sunset? What no one tells you is that in real life, you have to learn to live with each other's habits, quirks, and yes, downright annoyances. While we were showered with numerous well wishes from friends and family, the one wedding gift we didn't receive was the handbook on how to have a great partnership. And as you can imagine, being single for 44 years didn't exactly train me to share my life with anyone. As a businesswoman, I was used to making the decisions and calling the shots about where I was going, what I was doing, when, and with whom. Brian, on the other hand, was a former successful athlete who had spent his life being a team player, caring deeply about how his actions affected other people and the world around him. Early on in our relationship, we decided that our union would be our #1 priority. We promised each other that our choices would be based not on what Arielle wanted or on what Brian wanted, but on what was ultimately best for our relationship. This shared commitment meant that when we encountered the inevitable disagreements and upsets, no one would threaten to walk out, and both of us would take responsibility for finding a solution. Together, we explored couples workshops to learn heart-opening strategies to keep our love on track, and we always kept the lines of communication wide open. We shared our deepest thoughts and dreams, as well as our imperfections and fears. We have been fortunate to find guidance among our circle of friends and colleagues who are happily married, generous souls who have graciously shared their wisdom with us. Many of them, and others who have successfully navigated choppy marital waters, share their stories of turning conflict into connection and compassion in this book. Over the past 14 years, Brian and I have created a life together that far exceeds my wildest imagination. When I've had a full day, I sometimes leave my shoes lying about. And wouldn't you know, every now and then Brian will find one, get down on one knee, and place the shoe tenderly on my foot, proving that married life does indeed have its fairy tale moments. And then there are those times when you're both vying for the remote or have two totally different ideas about what a date night should include, and you wonder how two seemingly opposite people could ever find long-term bliss. If you know anything about the law of attraction, you know that you first have to declare your vision before it can become reality. When I was creating my soulmate wish list, I was very careful to list every statement in a positive way, such as, he will be loving, kind, and generous. Making positive statements about your intentions is an old talk to the universe trick, since the universe simply cannot hear the word not. According to the law of attraction, if you say, I do not want X, Y, or Z, you will end up getting just that. Although I knew this, there was one must-have requirement that I never did figure out how to position in a positive light, so I simply wrote, he will not be a football fanatic. Having grown up with a father and a brother who lived, breathed, and talked football 24/7, I often felt as if football was my nemesis in my ongoing competition for my father's attention. The truth is, I hate football, and I just couldn't imagine spending my life with someone who had football blaring on the TV. Truthfully, I'd rather be alone than be subjected to the sound of crashing helmets and the grunts of men in tight pants chasing a pig-skinned orb to the beat of 70,000 cheering fans. Wouldn't you know? What I resisted persisted. Brian was indeed a huge sports fan. For basketball. Okay, not football exactly, but the similarities were glaring. He comes by it honestly as a former player, but that didn't change the fact that I wasn't sure at first that I'd be able to overcome what I perceived to be this most harrowing obstacle. Would I have to compete for his attention, just as I had to for my father's time and focus? It would be unfair of me to put down the entire world of sports in one fell swoop. After all, those athletes work hard toward their goals, engaging in countless hours of practice while nobody is looking. I mean, who doesn't get goosebumps when watching the Olympics? I have shed a tear or two on occasion watching those medalists stand reverently on the award platform. In truth, it wasn't the actual notion of organized sports that put me off early in my relationship with Brian. It was the idea of competing for my partner's attention and playing second string to a pack of men on a flat-screen TV. I decided to face the first of many tests by opening myself up to the possibility of actually loving sports. Could it really be all that bad? What might I gain by broadening my thinking? More important, what would I lose if I didn't try to find something positive about my husband's passion? It was time to do some digging, and fortunately I quickly found some research that substantiated my belief that incompatibilities are an inherent part of all relationships. For the past 35 years, psychologist and researcher John Gottman, Ph.D., has been studying married couples, and he has found that every happily married couple has somewhere around 10 irreconcilable differences. In other words, scientific studies have now proved that having differences in a happy marriage is normal. What a relief! Not surprisingly, Gottman found that the top 2 irreconcilable differences are about finances and children. The other biggies include sex, in-laws, housework, political views, communication, balance between home and work, and personal idiosyncrasies. According to Susan Boone, Ph.D., a social psychologist at the University of Calgary, the secret lies in coming to terms with the differences rather than trying to solve the unsolvable. The Wabi Sabi solution is to embrace the tastes, opinions, preferences, and unique viewpoints that make each of us individuals, rather than trying to eliminate them. These claims all sound really good in theory, but would I be able to truly overcome my sports phobia and celebrate our diversity with a full-blown embrace? Wabi Sabi principle. Having differences is inevitable. What matters is how we manage the differences, and this is where becoming a Wabi Sabi artisan really pays off. Drawing on the Wabi Sabi lessons learned by my friend Moji, I realized that there was, in fact, a way out of my quandary. Moji, a smart woman whom I greatly respect, came up against a similar challenge when she fell in love with Jason, a football fanatic of the highest order. Her approach opened my eyes to the possibility that there was indeed a Wabi Sabi solution in my future. Falling in love with football. It was only their 3rd date when Jason suggested to Moji that the two spend it watching a very important football game. Although these words landed for Moji with a thud, she tried to keep an open mind. My son had just started playing football as a freshman in high school, she said, so I was no stranger to the game. I quickly picked up the basics about this rough-and-tumble sport, but spending our date night watching grown men pound one another into submission was not my idea of romance. It was the beginning of football season, and Jason and Moji were just getting to know each other. And even though Jason's football was a part of nearly every conversation they had, they still developed a strong bond that moved beyond the sport itself. A definite spark had been ignited. Before each game, she recollected, he would feverishly update me on all the players, stats, and injury reports. During the games, he would explain in detail the complexities and nuances of each play. His true passion for this game was undeniable. A few weeks into the season, Moji came to a critically important realization about the man she was falling in love with. Her outgoing, athletic, and very funny new love interest seemed to have a fatal flaw. He was literally obsessed with football and everything related to it. It wasn't long before Moji felt as though she were competing for Jason's attention. She began to wonder, is it going to be me or football? She was faced with a conundrum. Should she tolerate the sport and pretend she was having fun watching it, or should she throw a fit every time there was a game on? It was tempting to give in to one of those options, but realizing that she and Jason had true potential, she decided that she really wanted to enjoy her time with him and not just fake it. And putting up a fight every time he mentioned football seemed like a surefire way to end the relationship. And then she thought, why not me and football? Moji seriously pondered what it would take to make her relationship with Jason work and, more important, flourish. She thought about the elements of football. It's a bunch of great-looking, athletic men tackling one another. It involves speed, precision, and strategy. Her thoughts started reeling as she considered the sport's redeeming qualities. Finally, she came to a conclusion. The only thing for me to do is to dive into this with mind, body, and spirit to really learn the game. Then we will see if I love.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?